Hi everyone. Thanks for hopping on. We're just gonna let everyone kind of enter into the webinar here. We'll give it just a few more seconds as people jump in, and then we'll go ahead and get started. All right, I think everyone that was in the waiting room has joined in. So welcome everyone. Thanks for hopping on the Good Health and Wellness Community Health Webinar Series with our presenter today, Candace Briscoe. I'm going to introduce Candace here in a little bit, but I just wanted to give a few tips for participation today. You, all of the attendees in today's webinar are muted. However, you have the access to the chat box. So if you have questions throughout any thing that Candace goes over today, please feel free to ask any questions in the chat box. And then there is also a Q&A feature at the bottom of your screens, and you are more than welcome to ask questions in that format as well. The Q&A box does let you ask questions. I don't know what I'm trying to say. Anyways, you can ask questions in either of those two, and we will be going through those and reading your questions for Candace. All right, so like I mentioned, our presenter today is Candace Briscoe. Candace graduated from Northern State University with a degree in biology with a chemistry and computer science major. She opened Fit and Fire Studios in 2013 with a hot studio, and today that studio boasts over 50 teachers and 6 studios. And then within that building is also a laboratory where she formulates herbal-based personal care that is free of toxins like dyes and harmful preservatives. Candace has thousands of hours in training in yoga certification, Pilates instructor, Barre instructor, kids and prenatal yoga instructor. She's a personal trainer certified through NASM, with the goal to provide a whole health approach, finding the imbalance that causes disease, weight gain, pain, and giving the people power to heal themselves. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Candace for our webinar today. Welcome, Candace.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So welcome. So like I said, I am a biotech by nature. So that's the biology and chemistry minor that went to school. So I start almost everything that I do with the science base. Like I very much have anything that I bring on, I have to really check the scientific validity of it. And what's really nice is dealing with herbal therapy. There's a lot of medicines that are used today are actually, their history was in herbal therapy, and then they would just take the active ingredient out and put it in a pill. A lot of the methods, the things that they did in ancient time to try to help people's health, it's interesting because there's this whole renaissance that's going on right now in the healthcare industry, where we're starting to look at like the ways things used to be done, and then seeing like there was actual true validity to what they were actually doing back then for people's health. So like it said, I studied first as a yoga teacher. Yoga has a sister science called Ayurveda, and Ayurveda is the first true doctor-patient relationship in medicine that came out, like, and yoga is about 6,000 years old. Ayurveda came out approximately the same time. And so it's always traditional, and the way they practiced back then is very similar to how they practice today. If you come in with an ailment, they're not concerned so much about like what your symptoms are. They're more concerned about what happened in your life that actually led you to this illness. They never believe that anything was like just fix, put the Band-Aid on the problem. They always believe is like what got you to this point. So like the best way to kind of think of it is that if you came in and you had bleeding in the esophagus from acid coming up when you were going to sleep and when you were sleeping at night, then of course you'd go to the doctor, you'd get that bleeding fixed. But an Ayurvedic doctor is like, what lifestyle, what was happening in your life that actually led your body to do that? Because it's a belief that your body likes to be healthy, and that only when something goes out of imbalance that the body then becomes unhealthy. So if you go to an Ayurvedic doctor, they're not just going to give you a pill. They're going to actually give you 5 things to work on. They're going to give you an herbal therapy or a diet change. They're going to tell you a type of yoga that they want you to do and the time you're going to spend in it. They're going to tell you a certain breath work that they want you to do. They're going to tell either a type of meditation or a time of meditation, and then massage. Actually, it was prescribed that you would either massage the area or you would have somebody do a massage. So massage was very integral in the healing process. And so all of those things are this idea of bringing the body back into balance, to change your lifestyle that was out of balance and bring it back into balance. And so what's interesting is that kind of leads you down the rabbit hole of like herbal therapy and diet change. So sometimes taking something out of a person's diet that they've been doing all over and over and over again in their life is actually what can bring the body back into balance. So we find out what exactly is causing the imbalance in the body. A really great kind of story that I kind of tell people a lot. My dad has a business called Brain Intercept, where they scan people's brain, and what they're just doing is just trying to figure out what negative thing is happening to a person's brain that will eventually lead them to dementia or Alzheimer's. And I can tell you right now, the number one thing that's leading people down that road is a lack of restorative sleep. That shows up on the brain scan, that you're not actually getting enough sleep for the brain to actually not only clean itself, but heal itself. But an example of something that where we would change a person's diet to restore them back to health is that right at the beginning, when my dad first started the business, a gentleman came in and they already had the nursing home set. They already had everything set for him to go into a nursing home because his dementia had gotten so bad. So they booked him in. They came in and just figured, like, if there's something that we can do that can maybe help this person like live better while they're in the nursing home, we'll go get the brain scan and see what's going on. So the brain scan comes back severe inflammation due to an allergy. So he goes to the allergist, finds out the guy is allergic to milk. When he was an old German farmer, he drank milk and ate eggs and toast every morning without fail. So the hardest part of that one was taking milk out and then tricking him that he was not drinking milk. He was drinking milk, although he was drinking a milk alternative. And like they would do funny things. They said, cows must have got into something really bad that week. And so they tricked him, and eventually his brain had enough time to heal, and it was a complete reversal. As soon as they got the inflammation going out of the brain, his brain started to heal itself, and they canceled the room. So there's a lot of things that go on within our body that we don't know are actually leading us down the trail, that they might have just treated him for dementia and not really realized that something was causing something in the brain that caused that imbalance. So this is where I think like we're really finding this renaissance where people coming up not so concerned about what's happening now, but what's led themselves to that point. So coming in from Ayurveda, then you really kind of expand herbal therapy. So my grandmother was a midwife. They grew up in they were on the reservation in northern Canada called Buffalo Narrows. And the midwife on the reservation, because there's not a lot of doctors up in northern Canada, so the midwife was kind of the person that would prescribe the herbs and like take care of everyone. And a story that I say that kind of inspired me to learn more about my family's history dealing with herbal medicine. It actually goes back a long time ago. I was just a kid when this happened, but my great-grandmother was a midwife. My grandmother was supposed to apprentice, but like as we all know, kind of like it was a kind of a rough time, northern Canada. So my grandma didn't want to have anything to do with Native American. So she apprenticed for a little while just to make her mom happy and then exited out. So there's a lot of knowledge that actually you're going to find out was completely and totally lost from my great-grandmother. But the story that we heard when we were growing up is there was a girl on the reservation that was 15 years old. She was delivering a baby and she almost died. And so my great-grandma mixed up an herbal concoction that she gave her to try to shut down so she wouldn't get pregnant. She figured 15 years old, we're already dealing with it, it's going to shut down any pregnancy so we don't run into this again. And then time passes by, the girl like moves away, moves into the bigger cities. And my grandma is then in the hospital in Saskatoon, where's the city where she went to. And it just so happened that that same 15-year-old girl who was now in their 20s, like chased down, found my grandma. She's like, oh my goodness, we've been trying to find you because I'm now married and we've tried IVF, we've tried everything to try to get pregnant and we can't seem to do it. So her doctor was trying to find out what happened at that birth when she was 15 years old that may have stopped her from becoming pregnant. So they wanted the history. They wanted to talk to my great grandma. So my grandma's like, well, I'm going back, and like halfway point between Buffalo Narrows and Saskatoon is a town called Meadow Lake, and they were just going to meet up in Meadow Lake. And so my grandma talked to her and just said, like, I ran into that girl that we helped deliver that baby when she was 15 years old, and she's trying to get pregnant. And apparently my great grandma laughed, thought it was the funniest thing. She goes like, oh, all I did was give her all these different herbs and that shut it down. I just need to mix up these herbs and give it to her, and then that reverses the process. And what's so crazy about that is that she left to go back to the reservation and died along the way. So all of that knowledge that she had lost, completely and totally gone. She never had an apprentice underneath her. And so then that story, I think, like actually inspired us to kind of go, we built, we have a personal care product line called Mishkiki, which is Cree for a healing potion. I also heard it, it's Anastasia uses the same word. And what we're doing in that one is developing personal care products that use indigenous herbs. And not only indigenous herbs, but it become really, really crucial, like researching the product, that the active ingredients needed to be native to North America. And the whole thing about it, and like talking to a lot of the elders, was that it was a deep belief that the plants that surround you, that grow within your area, begin to sense what your body needs, and then will change their structure to give you what their needs. So the plants evolve along with what your health needs to wind up being. And so it's a really interesting concept, because we do know this, that like as human beings, like I said, I go back to the science part of it. As human beings, we know that we affect plants, that certain plants actually evolve differently based on the human diet that is around and the human's cultivation practices that are around that plant. So they change because of us. So it does make sense that we have an effect on the surrounding plants. So the idea behind it and the whole kind of impetus behind trying to use only like indigenous herbs that are native to the area is that you would then be separate from herbs that are natural to the European area. And then we're now disconnected from that healing process where the plants are now evolving to try to give us what we need. And so that it's been a really, really interesting project. So not only are we trying to we try to formulate without dyes, colors. We also formulate without preservatives. So we actually, the lab that we have is a clean lab. So as long as we keep bacteria and fungus out, we don't need to actually add preservatives. And so we keep all of those things out. But then on top of everything that we normally do, we actually added the idea of having the highlight herbs being indigenous and native to North America. And so a good example is peppermint is used constantly throughout so many natural products, but peppermint is a European plant. Of course, it grows here, but the history of peppermint has not been here. But there's a mint, it's in the mint family, that's pervasive all over North America, corn mint. And corn mint, we're actually finding, and if you like, we can do analysis of like the constituent parts of corn mint, and it's actually far more potent than peppermint is anyways. And so what we actually found was that there's a distinct improvement in a lot of the healing capacity of the herbs that we're putting into the products because they're indigenous to the area. And this is something that then expands into other areas as you're coming into like adding herbs to your meals. So yeah, I know everybody attributes Hippocrates, let medicine be your food, let food be your medicine, always contributes to him, but that's actually an Ayurvedic thing that actually predates Hippocrates by about 2,000 years. But they would say, they would prescribe a food, and if they're going to give you an herbal therapy on it, it's not a pill, it would be herbs that you would just sprinkle on top of your food. So then instead of food just becoming sustenance, food then becomes your medicine that heals you. And so even coming into like using that knowledge and then working it into indigenous herbs within our area, then that would be like, if you changed like whatever you wanted, if you did like a peppermint jam or you flavored something with peppermint, to then use cornmeal instead, so that instead of it just being a meal that had some kind of peppermint in, it then becomes a healing meal. So it changes also your relationship with your food. So now instead of you just eating something because you like the taste of peppermint, you're eating something that's actually going to bring health back to your body. So those are, I guess, like that's kind of like highlight things of like why you want to, like, I think the best thing is like kind of stumbling on my words here. But I think the best thing a person can do to start to bring balance back to their life is to then start to become very aware of the things that are happening to your body. So there's a very brutal diet, I think, for anyone to come on, and it's not a diet to lose weight, but it's a diet to try to figure out what your body's reacting to. And it's an elimination diet. So like you go the first 3 days and you're just supposed to eat carrot, beets, and celery. Like, so really, really basic. That's about the hardest part of it. And then you add one type of food each day and then keep a diary. So if you get a headache, that's actually a sign that you've eaten something that your body is not liking. Headaches are not usually problems with the head. If there's something going wrong in the body, it's going to do a few things. One, it's going to give you bags underneath your eyes. So if you have dark circles underneath your eyes and your grandma had dark circles under her eyes and you just think it's genetic, sometimes it's just because you two had similar diets. And so where there's something that you're both eating that are changing it. And we know that I can actually witness it full in real life with my daughter when we did the elimination diet. She's always dark circles under her eyes. And the first little bit of it, when we had eliminated everything else, and then she ate tomatoes, I was sitting across the table from her and you could see like somebody turned a faucet on and then all of a sudden all the black went into underneath her eyes. So bags under her eyes is a sign that you've eaten something that your body doesn't like. Headaches are a sign that you've eaten something that your body doesn't like. And then the final thing is that if you have like abnormal weight gain, that's usually that there's something in your diet that your body doesn't like. So weight gain in and of itself is an imbalance because it takes your work for your body to maintain those extra fat cells, and that's an abnormal condition. So we don't even look at weight loss as any kind of failure in motivation, failure in it. We absolutely don't even look at that whatsoever. We look at it only as an imbalance. What is throwing the body off of what it's naturally supposed to be doing to keep itself healthy? And 9 times out of 10, when we have an abnormal weight gain, we'll have people like write down what their weight is every single day while they're on this. And if all of a sudden you gain 4 pounds in one day, that is an absolute sign that whatever you've added to your diet, your body does not like, and it's mucusing up to try to wall it off. And when we come into those situations, that's where we get an imbalance that can actually cause weight gain to become permanent in a person, where we're actually storing some of that excess stuff in fat cells. Is what another job of the fat cells is to hold on to things that our body doesn't want to digest, it doesn't like. And so that even comes into this idea of changing the way you eat, changing the way you perceive food. So perceiving food as this idea is like doing this to heal me, to bring my body back into balance. So that anything, of course, like you're going to get any stuff that like absolutely becomes apparent symptom that you really, really need to take care of, like a headache that is just so bad and you have to close your eyes. Yes, you can take medicine to take care of the headache, but then you need to come back and figure out what causes, because the body doesn't naturally want to have a headache. The body wants to feel good. The body wants to like perform all of its duties without pain. And so then that's when we're looking back and try to figure. So we use Western medicine, and like my father was a doctor for like many, many years. So I absolutely have no problem with Western medicine. But I always think the part they're missing is like, yes, fantastic, taking care of whatever problem is presenting itself today. Whereas like anything moving into like more herbal therapy, into Ayurveda, we're trying to figure out what got you to that point, what's going to bring you back to balance. I think that's all I can kind of say about that. If anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you, Candace. Very interesting. I love listening to your stories. Yeah, if anyone has questions for Candace, again, there's the Q&A, there's the chat box. If you'd like to come off mute and ask a question verbally, you can use the raise hand button at the bottom of the screen, and I can unmute you as well. I was curious, Candace, the herbs that you use in your lab within your studios, are those local to your area, or do you source from other areas as well, or where do you go about getting the plants that you use?
Yeah, mostly local. So of course we're in South Dakota, so like I've got a season where we can't get a lot of stuff. And like sometimes we'll break down to like just constituent parts. And I should say, like, sometimes we now have like enough science to tell us that there's certain things that our skin needs, our hair needs. And sometimes that is not within the indigenous areas. Sometimes it is. Sometimes we do actually have to wind up using herbs from Europe or all over the world, basically, in order to actually to make it a full product. And it's like, I have to say that that's not laziness on my part. It's just the way plants grow. Like we do know that your skin and your hair need minerals, fatty acids, water, vitamins. They need peptides. And so some of these things are available to me because I know, we know this from modern science. Some things are available to me indigenous. Some of them I need to like go outside and make sure that I fill. So I have a whole product, because I can always do something where like I want to have a good herbal treatment that I can give to someone. But if it's not all fitting, like all encompassing, I'd rather have something that works. But we tried, because like a great example too, I always think, is like honey. I would never in a million years use honey that is outside of my local area. So the bees go around and they collect the pollen. And for anybody that has allergies, like adding honey, like naturally to locally grown honey naturally, can actually help alleviate environmental allergies such as like hay fever. This is almost like microdosing the pollen that causes the problem. So the bee goes around and gets slight amount of pollen, and then they go back to the hive to make the honey. Well, some of that pollen, just small bits of the pollen, remain within the honey. So when you actually ingest local honey, you're microdosing the pollen that is around that area. So this is why, like I said, like we know that actually a lot of times the indigenous herbs, the indigenous materials that we can get around are much higher quality than what we can get outside. So indigenous first and foremost, and if I have no other choice, then I have to go outside. So I think hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Another one coming from the Q&A, how long does it typically take to see side effects such as a headache from a food that does not agree with your body?
Okay, and so that's a fantastic question. So we really only can do like figuring out that if it came from a food when we're doing elimination, we've added a food. So if you've added a food that you're reacting to, the headache is going to come either instantaneously or within the first couple of hours. The problem is that when we're eating a whole bunch of stuff and a whole bunch of different things, it's really hard to pinpoint what's through the headache. And so that's why, like, kind of eliminating, coming down to normal, and then coming down to like very little, and then adding one thing at a time, you should get the headache for sure within the same day. There's no doubt you'll get the headache within the same day if you've eaten something that your body is not liking. And it's just a warning sign, like headache, skin rashes. When I see those on people, when anybody tells me like they have a headache or they have a skin rash, I'll always tell them is like, I can help treat the rash. I can help, like we can do all these things for the headache, but that's your body's warning sign that something's not right. And so then we need to actually get down to root cause of like what caused that in the first place. And like 9 times out of 10, it is diet, but then a lot of times it's stress. And you can go through like an absolute list of all the things that happen to the body when it's under stress. And like doing things like yoga and meditation, if you can take stress out of the picture, which I know a lot of people that's hard, but we can always do things to alleviate stress. If you can start to take stress out of the picture, then we can start to come down to like the more minute details. But a lot of times, like, so I'll like one great example of like how brutal stress is on the body. And I tell people this in my yoga classes all the time of how it's so important to start dealing with stress. And meditation and yoga it's not just me selling, it's got so many scientific studies behind it that is amazing stress relief. Getting a massage, it is not something that's just a luxury. We actually in Ayurveda believe that it's a crucial part of a person's overall health. But in northern Canada, there was a tribe of people that were flash frozen. So a lot of times when they talk about the ancient gut bacteria or how ancient people used to live, they're actually coming off of the studies off of those people, because like even the stomach contents were intact for these people. So we could tell the bacteria, everything that's going on inside that person's stomach. Well, the one thing that we know is that when you have stress going off, you push out the adrenal hormones in the body. And adrenal hormones are very, very inflammatory. Every single cell in your body is put in a damaged state when it's come in contact with those adrenal hormones. And that goes right down to your bones. So you can almost tell how stressed a person, how much stress a person has endured in their life based on the pock marks on a person's bone, like how much their bones have been attacked by stress hormones. And so if you look at a tribe of an ancient person, you can actually tell that they actually, even though despite they had to work for food, they had to do all these different things, try to find shelter. If you actually look at what stress load was, their stress load was significantly less than us in our Western life. So there's things that we call stress events in our life. And that's where you're like, oh, crap, I forgot to pay the bill. Oh my gosh, when did this happen? And there's things that like so overwhelm us, it changes our breath pattern, it changes our heart pattern, it raises our blood pressure. And that's what we call a stress event. So in ancient times, you would get a stress event when you're going to be chased by a lion, or when you're like, oh no, there's no food left, right? We can't find food anywhere. You would have the stress event that way. But in modern society, we can get stress events, like I said, like, crap, I forgot to call my mother-in-law. Oh my gosh, I forgot to do this. And we do this constantly to ourselves. And so what they've shown is on average, the ancient human beings had 1 to 2 stress events a week. The average Western person has 50 stress events every single day. And so we're not even down, even when you're deep breathing, we're not even down from one stress event before another one hits us. And we have that all compiling on one on top of another. So we actually we're putting ourselves in it's almost like humans have never dealt with this level of stress in their life. So we're now seeing this cascade of all the consequences of the stress that we put on ourselves. That kind of went way off topic, but.
That's wonderful. Thank you. We do have a couple more questions, but I also see we have an attendee with their hand raised. So let's see. Winona, I believe I took you off mute if you'd like to ask your question.
Hi, good afternoon, Candace. How are you?
I'm doing good.
So I noticed whenever you were talking, you said something about mucus and how your body reacts to it. So my understanding is like, so whenever your body creates mucus, is that your body's way of protecting itself, or is that something that is not a normal thing?
Yeah, it's very much the way your body's protecting itself. So before an object comes into so anything that's exposed to the outside world, so like, of course, your nasal passage is coming down through the stomach, that's exposed to the outside because you eat something, it comes down all the way through the gut. So we call that epithelial tissue that comes all the way through. Whether you're breathing or eating, you're putting foreign objects into the body and it comes through those spaces. So anytime your body comes into contact with something it doesn't like, it'll mucus up so it traps it. So then it keeps it from causing damage within the body. So the more things, so that's why if you inhale a lot of dust, you'll find yourself really stuffy, is because now your body's making mucus to trap that dust. And then if you're in your intestinal system, like it's lined with mucus and that, it's because like as something comes through that the body doesn't like, it'll hold it in mucus until it has a chance to deal with it. And that's a big problem that we have. Sometimes we're eating stuff that's like so preservative laden, the things that our body doesn't really recognize as like true food, it'll sometimes trap those, and we don't give it a chance to like clear out the mucus. And like that's what it's doing, is just using the mucus to hold it until it has a chance to deal with it. And if it never gets a chance to deal with it, then we actually get like all these gut problems that happen because now the mucus doesn't have a chance to clear out.
Oh, thank you for answering that. Yeah, I always wondered that just because back in the day, my grandma always told me that whenever your body produces mucus, it's a good thing because it's
Yes,
like helping your
protecting
body.
you.
But
Absolutely.
but it's also not a good thing because
Yeah.
your body doesn't naturally produce mucus. And that's like one of the biggest like I guess health problems that people face nowadays is they don't understand that mucus is trying to fight something out of your body.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. It's absolutely a good thing to have mucus because, like, for your body to have to deal with it in its regular immune system way, it's going to have to like have everything travel through into the outside tissue. And that's really, it's a long process for a body to do that. But if it can trap it in mucus, then it's very, very protective of the body. But it's also a sign that something got in there that the body's trying to protect itself from.
Okay, one last question. Sorry. I know other people have questions, but okay, so when you do have mucus, because right now I'm currently fighting off COVID. I've had
Yes.
COVID since last week, and it's like crazy mucus. Just every morning I wake up, every time I go to sleep, I wake up and I'm full of mucus. Is there
Yes.
anything that I can do to like, is there any kind of herb or any kind of anything that I could take to kind of
Yeah.
lessen the mucus membrane?
Yeah. The only thing is it's like definitely like you up your water intake. But like if a person, and this goes both with indigenous and Ayurveda, if a person is showing a lot of mucus, we tell them to cut any dairy whatsoever out. We do know even if you're not lactose intolerant, the body has like a mucus response to dairy. It's just natural. It's just one of the ways it actually deals with it. So the less dairy you have, definitely that's better. And then it's water. Like even though like mucus is kind of like a fatty, mucus is also very water soluble. And so like we'll tell people a lot, like do like saline rinses, do those kind of things so that the water, and especially saline, because saline will actually like lyse the mucus. And so like saline rinses and that kind of thing can be like absolute golden. As far as herbs that we get in, I think like the most successful herb that we've seen with like mucus, especially with COVID, is mullein, which is a leaf. And so like a mullein tea, that is not indigenous to North America. That is, it's from Chinese herbal medicine. But actually, even if you go to the doctor and you're trying to break up mucus, like people that get very, very bad situations of bronchitis, they took the active ingredient from mullein and turned it into a pill. So it does the exact same thing as the plant does. And I always like plant medicine too, because plant medicine, you can OD a lot easier on synthetically made medicine than you can on plant medicine. Plant medicine has so many fail-safes to it, it's fantastic. In fact, we were just talking about it upstairs, like there's so many people right now that are like taking like synthetic hormones, it's crazy. And like, really, you can OD very much on hormones. But if you use phytohormones, like plant-based hormones, a lot of them won't even digest if you already have enough of those hormones in you. So there's so many wonderful safeties to plant medicine that there aren't in regular Western medicine. So that's what I said. But a mullein leaf tea, again, I go off topic, I'm like terrible that way. But mullein leaf tea is like one thing that we've really seen has like a really good like mucus cutting properties to it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Candace. I'll go back into the audience.
Thanks, Winona. Thanks for those questions. And thank you, Candace. Let's see. Our next one in the Q&A is, can you talk a bit about treatment for resistant parasites?
Okay. So the parasites one, like what we usually talk about is fulvic acid for parasites. And there's so many treatments that are now on the market today. The problem with like natural ones, and I'll just be totally honest with you, is they're very slow acting. There are anti-parasitic diets that we put people on. There's tinctures that are usually super, super high in fulvic acid that we'll give to people. But if you're gonna do it the plant-based way, it's gonna take 30 days. So it does take a long time. So there are advantages, like if you have a parasite infection, like it is just one pill. But I do caution, it's a really, really interesting thing within the human condition. We all evolved with parasites in us. There was no such thing as an anti-parasitic up until like, I think it's like even the early 1900s before we start to get the anti-parasitics for like tapeworm, hookworm, all those different things. So what's interesting about it is that parasites have been naturally within the human condition. We've grown up with them as human beings. And so there are some that are symbiotic almost because we've been there for so long. And then there's some that of course cause problems. So if I have somebody with a parasite problem, 9 times out of 10, when we do the interview with the person, it's they've got an ungodly craving for sweets all the time. And that's the parasites hacking their brain system, creating that craving for sweet foods and stuff. Also, people even take on kind of, we call it a wormy look, where they look a little bit off. And so like if it becomes a health problem, it becomes whatever, then like I said, the natural way is going to take a little bit longer than the Western way, and it takes a little bit of dedication, but you can always get them out for sure. I was going to tell one interesting story about like humans evolving. Just like, again, I'm always off topic, so we'll just embrace it by now. But the hookworms were natural within human beings for a long time. We just grew up like full of hookworms. Most human beings did. So hookworms, we know, actually eat gluten. That's one of their main sustenance, and hookworms will hijack your brain to make you crave sweets and gluten all the time. So that's actually a sign of a hookworm infection when somebody has that. So there was a doctor in Australia that was also an anthropologist that was studying how humans kind of grew up with it. And so he took, I think it was like something 50 or some people with celiac disease, and then infected them with hookworm. Every single one of them within the week, all of their celiac symptoms completely disappeared. And so what's interesting about that is that they probably grew up with hookworms, or their ancestors grew up with hookworms always in the system. The hookworms were digesting the gluten. So as soon as the hookworms are gone, there's nothing that digests the gluten anymore, and it becomes celiac. And the reason why we don't really hear much about that study anymore is because they couldn't exactly isolate what the hookworm was doing to actually address or get rid of the gluten. And anytime you can't find one singular chemical, of course they can't create a drug off of it. And so it was all like completely and totally scrapped. So every single one of those people were actually given a pill to get rid of their hookworm right away, and none of them took it. Everybody was just going to live with their hookworm because then they didn't have to deal with celiac anymore. So that's what we always caution, is like we want to make sure that the person actually feels bad. But an average person, you have the immune capacity. If you're healthy, you have the immune capacity to fight off a parasite actually quite easily.
Very interesting. Thanks, Candace.
I'll
These
just
are
go
great
all
questions.
over.
Yes, these are great questions, guys. Okay, our next one is, my daughter is a vegetarian and has been for years. She too has had dark circles under her eyes. Doctors have just put it as natural, but I feel that she's missing something, vitamin, protein. How can she really find out about that?
So that's what I would do. You can check food tolerances. I know like there are like kits you can buy and check for specific food intolerances, but food intolerances are different than hypersensitivities. Hypersensitivities are what give you headaches and eye bags and unnatural weight gain. So a lot of times they're not going to show on an allergy test. The really only true way to find out exactly what it is to do an elimination diet. So you just do, like I said, it's the most horrific. Like the first 3 days, my husband always talks about it as like it's the worst thing I ever did to him. So for like 3 days, all we could eat were beets, carrots, and celery. That was it. And then everything's out of the system, everything's cleared, and then you add one thing at a time. So that's when we're watching, and that's when you can really isolate what exactly is causing the problem. Because it tends not to be a deficiency that caused the problem. It tends to be something you're eating that's causing your body to go out of whack because it doesn't like it. And we're all completely like, we're all wired differently. So that's why you couldn't really say, and I couldn't really say right from the beginning what it is causing with her, because like one person is going to be perfectly fine with tomatoes. The other person is going to completely and totally react to it. And the only way I'm going to know that is that if I take everything out of the system, and then when I add the tomatoes, I just kind of watch what happens.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah.
A few out of the chat. We have, do you have your own clinic per se, in parentheses?
I don't right now. I kind of overloaded myself a little bit. But the plan is, and so basically I just consult with people. I consult with people one-on-one. And people, it's called an Ayurvedic consult. And so I just consult with people wherever I can find a space. It's a pretty big building I'm in. Like I said, I had to like run to a different room because that one was being used. And so usually they will have the private one-on-one talk. And like I said, I'm structured just like an Ayurvedic doctor. So I'm not just gonna suggest like, here, take this pill and like see me in a couple of weeks. It is like this idea of like getting down. They take a lot of time because we get down, try to figure out all the things that are happening. And it gets like, it's way more intense than going to a doctor when you do an Ayurvedic consult, because like we also have to talk about like if there were traumatic things that happen in your life, because that's going to change your overall body's health. Even if it happened 10 years ago, the consequences of that can actually change the system of the body that can actually make it feel imbalanced. And it's kind of always talk about that. Like great kind of example of that is like survivor's guilt. When somebody like survived a plane crash and they were the only one that survived, survival guilt like goes with them. We can actually show changes in the structure of the DNA on the person that's got survival guilt, because it's something that's so overwhelmed their body for so long. So we go into like trauma that you've dealt with. We go into your diet. We go into like how you're standing, like how you go about your day. Like what are you doing like work-wise during the day? You need to really get the whole picture of your life to actually see. Sometimes it's not food. Sometimes a huge thing that gets people nowadays, after COVID, I think I saw more people, is when you're touch deprived, like no hugs, no doing anything, it causes all sorts of havoc across the body. It's like one of the worst things for the human body is to not feel physical touch, kind physical touch, like of course not being punched in the eye, but like kind physical touch will actually like change a person's health. And so that's a big thing of prescribing massage therapy, is to at least get like some kind of kind touch on that person, where a person's doing with the intention to make you feel better. That can change a person's overall health as well. So I don't have a clinic per se, but I do like meet one-on-one with people in Ayurvedic consults, and then just kind of like we go through like such. It's like I said, it's an intense thing, and it's not just walk away with a pill. There's like a lot of things that we have to work on afterwards to try to bring it back to balance. So.
Can you let us know your take on essential oils, realizing that they aren't local, but just the recent popularity around them?
Yeah, I don't mind essential oils on, I always think it's so like dealing more with like indigenous, we're more concerned with the whole plant, right? And I always mean to do this and do a video just to kind of show people, when we're creating an essential oil, you like mash up the flower or mash up the herb, and then you put it into like a paste, and then you're gonna boil it, and then it goes through this tube thing with a little spiral. So outside the spiral, all the water soluble contents of the plant comes out, and that comes into something we call a hydrosol, and then all the fat soluble components of the plant comes out, and that's what makes the essential oil. So you're not getting the whole plant, which, like I said, if we're trying to be connected with the herbs that are going to heal us, now you're not using the whole plant. So I have no problem with essential oils whatsoever, and I know a lot of people use it. But it is something where like we're missing the hydrosols, and sometimes like the water soluble components of the plant are more healing than the fat soluble healing of the plant. So this way, if we get both the fat soluble and water soluble parts of the plant and work them together, it's like it's a double edge. It's two fists coming after whatever the problem is. And so we kind of more along the lines, both Ayurveda and indigenous healing herbs, more work on the idea of the whole plant, not just the fat soluble portions.
Great. We have one more in the chat. Have you seen concerns with the high amounts of oxalates in our current health and superfoods?
Yes, 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 yes. So anything in, anything in excess, like we're talking about trying to balance the body. And so anything in excess of the body, either the body is going to figure out a way to live with it, which is always going to sacrifice other things in order to live with it. So it creates an imbalance in just like, but the very process of that, right? So oxalate cause, when we're actually at a high oxalate process, it can cause an imbalance in the body just because now you're giving it a job it never planned on working on, and that's dealing with that excess of it. Almost everything we do, like, and we don't really even talk about superfoods a lot of times because really like any food can be a superfood. So like if I have somebody and like we're trying to dial back their stress, ashwagandha is a great herb, and that's an herb from India. It's just a weed that grows on. The other things like, the other thing that I absolutely love about Ayurveda and indigenous herbs is because 9 times out of 10 they're weeds, so they're cheap, right? You're not going to get like this, like oil from South America that costs like $150 an ounce. A lot of times, like it's because we're trying to like use the stuff that grows around with it, winds up being much cheaper. And so any food can be a superfood when you understand your relationship with that food. And so like when a person has a salad, I give them like a powder that's ashwagandha, and I say like, okay, just sprinkle. It's very tasteless. Put it on your salad, and now you're not just eating a salad. You're eating something that's going to heal it. And you put that in your mind, like I'm going to heal myself by eating this salad. And then it changes. So it's not so much like an idea of superfood. It's the idea of whatever food you eat becoming something that you're doing to heal yourself. So it's like that whole change of relationship thing.
Wonderful. One last closing. Are there any specific websites, books, resources that you recommend to people who are wanting to learn more?
Yes. Okay. So there is, so in the Ayurveda side, I can talk about. With my indigenous side, I don't think there's a book written, but it should be, right? Like there's a lot that are specific to different tribes, but in my particular tribe in Northern Canada, there's nothing written. Everything's just kind of spoken, passed down. And I'm not so sure if that's something that it would almost be disrespectful to create a book where somebody could use it and was disconnected from the practice, because like I said, when they do it, it's usually under an apprentice where somebody's taught one-on-one. But as far as Ayurveda is concerned, and the principles of trying to use 5 things, the herbal therapy, yoga, meditation, breath work, and massage, all those things, there is a doctor called Vasant, V-A-S-A-N-T. The last name is L-A-D. I would actually say that if you could find any book for him, he's like the absolute authority on it. And so there's Ayurveda for beginners you can read, and you can deep dive. It's Ayurvedic doctors it's a medical school. So it's the same as going through medical school. So like, it's not going to be like one book, but like he wrote one called Ayurveda for Beginners that like is the perfect, like kind of gives you like the whole picture of it. And then you can dive deeper into different texts after you like kind of got that first level of it.
Awesome. Thanks, Candace.
Totally.
Would it be okay if I share your contact information in the chat, or do you have a Facebook that you prefer to share?
Yeah, but I think my email's in the chat. I would absolutely like be totally willing to my cell phone, but I always warn people, like as a yoga teacher, we're always on do not disturb. So I'll never answer my phone, which drives my husband nuts. But like it's 9 times out of 10 on do not disturb, and I just text. So it's easier to just to text me with information or to email me, because then it's like I'll actually be able to see it.
Perfect. I'll put Candace's email in the chat right now. I see one more question, so I'm going to get to that. And then we might be at time.
Okay.
But I just put a short evaluation in the chat as well for all of our attendees before we end today. if you could take some time and share your thoughts on our webinar today, we really appreciate it. Okay, so there's Candace's email in the chat. And then I know, okay, here's the question. I know this is off subject somewhat, but
I'm used to that.
but is it true that we all have worms, and how do we detox from them?
I don't know. It's not true we all have worms. In fact, we've become a very hygienic society, which there's pluses and minuses to it. So the hygiene, the fact that you're washing your hands after you go to the bathroom, it's probably your biggest defense off of getting parasites. But then also eating undercooked food, pork is probably about the biggest parasite thing that can add parasites to a person. But of course, like undercooked fish, most of the time, if you cook something, it's going to kill it. But like pork, since you almost have to cook it to the point of leather, it always could have a chance of actually having parasites. Normally when you ingest those, your body can easily take care of, because this goes back to the history of all our human ancestors dealing with these parasites. Of course, they didn't have a temperature gauge to make sure that like it was hot enough in the middle to kill all the parasites whenever you're eating those foods. So interesting is our white blood cells, our primary immune system is so used to those parasites. They've seen them all throughout human history that they actually attach certain chemicals that they know can actually kill that parasite. So it's that past knowledge that our ancestors gave us moved down through the DNA that actually can fight off parasites quite easily. But if you are sick, imbalanced, if you are overtired, you didn't get enough sleep, your immune system now is down to a lower roar. So it's a good possibility you could have it. So I wouldn't say that everybody has worms, but I would say that you could definitely have one. It could be a symbiotic. So like I said, watch out. If you're not feeling bad, then just let your body deal with it on its own. Because even the process of detoxing for worms, we're changing the body system and then fighting the balance that it has. So if you can have your own body take care of it on your own, we actually would prefer that. And so that's what I would say, that is like, not everyone has worms, just because if you have a good immune system, it's going to kill them off. But most definitely anybody that can get pushed in the balance is actually at risk of getting it. And then, like I said, it's all levels. Sometimes if a person's sick, we're going to get it out right away. If they're feeling kind of not off, then we're going to get it out. But if a person feels fine, we want their immune system to do it on its own.
Awesome. I think that is all of our questions. Thank you all so much, all of our attendees, for all of your wonderful questions and your participation. Just a comment in the chat. Thank you so much, Candace. This was so informative. Yes, we really appreciate you taking the time and joining us today, Candace. That was wonderful. This webinar has been recorded. We will be sending out a follow-up email to all of our participants and anyone who wasn't able to make it today. So if there's something you want to go back and listen to again, please keep an eye out for that with the link to the recording. I think, yes, just a lot of thank yous in the chat. So I think we'll wrap up today. Again, like I said, Candace's email is in the chat, and we so appreciate you today, Candace. Thank you so much.
I appreciate the opportunity. I could geek out on this stuff for hours, so this was wonderful for me too.
Yes, it was very interesting. Thank you so much, and thank you all for joining us today. I hope you all have a great rest of your day and week.
All right, thank you so much.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
everyone. See you later.
See ya.